Mapping the elements of Scrum onto music rehearsal processes. I have a background in musical performance. I've also taught for many years and worked with young musicians. The rehearsal process can be really hard to master, but it's also really essential, especially when working in small ensembles. A question that I sought to answer was, how can the elements of Scrum be mapped onto the rehearsal process in order to help students collaborate in small ensembles? To answer this question, I reviewed literature on Scrum and also on EduScrum, the educational adaptation of Scrum. I interviewed a colleague who has a career in teaching young people. And I also drew on my own experiences as a performer and teacher to create a hypothetical setting where Scrum might be used. I determined that the roles for Scrum mapped this way onto the musical process, that the team, the development team, was the players themselves. The Scrum Master would be the coach or the teacher, because that's the person who facilitates both the rehearsal space and time, but also effective communication between the players. I named the composer as the product owner because the composer created the product backlog, which is, in a sense, the piece of music, which is where the students or musicians are going to draw their work from. I also named the audience as stakeholders because they are actually the end user, that they're going to receive that piece of music in the final performance. When looking at the three pillars of Scrum and the values of Scrum, I really found a lot of parallels. Transparency, players bring what they have to the table when they go into rehearsal. The ensemble plays, they discuss what happened and inspect the result, and then they adapt, they change things together in order to improve the result or the outcome. These values are also not foreign to music rehearsal as it is. Commitment and focus to play individually and together, the courage to bring your own playing in front of other people and to take criticism, respect, to be able to speak respectfully to one another and also have respect for the music, and to foster a climate of openness where people can be honest and give and receive criticism in an appropriate manner, and to try new ideas. This was the sprint that I devised. I said, imagine students in a summer program that's 2 to 4 weeks in length, so you could make your sprint 1 week long. Students will decide what they're going to work on at the beginning. Their artifacts are going to be the product backlog, which is their piece of music, their sprint backlog, which is what they're going to list as to be the individual parts that they're going to tackle or the work they're going to do in order to produce a product increment, which is a portion of the piece they can have ready in that time period. They'll rehearse daily. At the end of the sprint, they're going to have a sprint review, which is a mock performance or studio class where they play what they've done and receive feedback from stakeholders. And then they're going to have a sprint retrospective where they reflect on their rehearsal process and on how they want to change that for the next sprint. I found similarities and differences between Scrum and the conventional rehearsal process. I did find a lot of things that worked very, very well automatically transferring from Scrum to the conventional process or to the rehearsal setting. Collaboration, self-organization, and ensemble being independent and making decisions and meeting challenges, learning about other instruments and becoming cross-functional, having the values that I already stated, and being willing to try things, fail at them, and then try something new in order to keep improving. Those are all already inherent in the musical rehearsal process. Difference was really how explicit Scrum is in stating what the process needs to look like, how the process can be improved. What does ready, that's actually from EduScrum more than from traditional Scrum, what does ready look like? And breaking the entire piece of music into smaller increments so that students can master one thing at a time. In conclusion, I think Scrum has a very good a correlation with the rehearsal process and has a lot to offer in teaching students to be aware of how they rehearse rather just than on what they rehearse and when they rehearse. And I think that it will allow musicians to develop more perspective on how they interact with each other, their teachers, their audience, and the music itself.